Okay, so welcome back to panel, high-level panel number 5. The topic will be on ammonia, eFuels, which is a very interesting possibility to use low-emission molecules. But let me maybe use the opportunity to briefly give an update. As DRI, Desert Energy, we've been working closely with Morocco for 16 years now, and with the MENA Hydrogen Alliance since 2019. I think we had a lot of interesting conversations. We know where we stand in the cycle, but I wanted to give you a brief update, being based in Dubai, what our neighbors do and where the overall energy transformation stands. So in the UAE, in Dubai, where I'm based, in a small country, there is 10 gigawatt of renewable capacity, majority solar, relatively small capacity of wind. There's pumped hydro as well in the UAE, similar to Morocco. But the big development is next to us in Saudi, as we all know, and Omar mentioned it today, Aqua Power. I think what is Neom Green Hydrogen, this is really impressive. For those of you who've not been there, I can only encourage you, it's 80% complete. This is happening, more than 4 gigawatts of renewables, 2,200 megawatt electrolyzer capacity. And in addition, on the hydrogen side, Yanbu, which is 2 times Neom Green Hydrogen, particularly with German involvement. So the movement is advancing. The projects are even getting bigger. Yanbu will be 5 Neom Green Hydrogen mid to long term once it is finished. But more importantly, when Saudi launched the 54 gigawatt in 2012 at our conference in Berlin, nothing much happened. So Saudi was a little bit the disappointment, but Saudi is speeding up and is doing tangible, concrete projects. So who would have known that Saudi has today 12 gigawatts of solar and wind operational, more than 25 gigawatt of solar and wind under construction, and look at BESS. So the Red Sea battery alone is in 23 was bigger than all batteries combined installed in Europe. Saudi today has more than 10 gigawatt hours of BESS operational and committed, meaning tendering, construction, and financing committed is approximately 6. So in 2 years, Saudi will have approximately 70. So this is just huge. The numbers are huge. Saudi is not slowing down with a lower oil price. I think this is the most important message. This is being done because it makes sense for the country. It's a big economic advantage. And this brings me to Morocco. Morocco has even better, has among the world's best wind conditions. Morocco today is a big user, a big importer of ammonia, and we have OCP on our panel. We will discuss this. So the 2 million tons could be immediately greened, and I think this is really the opportunity. It doesn't matter what we need renewables in the future. Renewables is globally anyway the biggest form of energy in terms of capacity additions investments. Renewables and low-cost solar and wind is the new currency, is needed for many different things. Data centers, for example, you can co-locate, and this is our new report, our new thought leadership. to the big hydrogen hub, you co-locate data centers, and you can, we call it the new super off-takers. You can partly resolve the off-taker dilemma we've been all facing here. And renewables, lowest cost renewables, is the future that will attract energy-intensive industries. So my message is, don't wait. There cannot be enough solar and wind capacity. What we see here in the region currently, we have a bit more than 30 gigawatt installed. This will be doubled approximately until next year, and then going up to 150, 200 gigawatt by 2030. So the development is happening. It makes economic sense, and yeah, I think now we will start with the panel to make the connection, the variety, the beauty of hydrogen. Hydrogen is the best friend of renewables, and we will make the link now towards ammonia and eFuels. So let us give us maybe every panelist the opportunity to just very briefly introduce the organization and maybe a brief introductory statement. Let's start with Elodie, the lady, of course.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Elodie Atte from MGH Energy. MGH Energy is belonging to a huge man quite known in France, because we installed the first wind farm in France, in Port-la-Nouvelle, and our journey in Morocco started a few years ago when Jean-Michel Germain won the right to develop the project of Koudia Al-Baïda. It was the first wind farm of Morocco and the first wind farm of Africa. Now, MGH Energy is developing eFuel projects. We will install our own renewable assets, make our own green hydrogen, and until the end of the value chain, where we will sell e-kerosene and e-methanol. So I'm head of business development. In France, I have different hats, and maybe one which could explain what I do. I'm also deputy delegate for Occitanie for France Hydrogène. So I follow very strongly regulation in France, Europe, and also in Morocco through cluster Green H2.
Thank you. Thorsten, welcome.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks a lot, Cornelius. So my name is Thorsten Herder, and I'm CEO of HIF Europe, Middle East, Africa. So HIF is a company which is producing e-fuels. I call them very often renewable hydrocarbons, because at the end of the day, it's more than a fuel. It goes into the chemical industry, into the maritime industry, into the transport industry, into the aviation industry. So everywhere where we use hydrocarbons as of now, which is almost 80% of everything, we need to change that from fossils into renewables, right? Otherwise, we can forget about meeting our climate targets. So we have been front runners and still are front runners. We are operating in the south of Chile, the world's first e-fuels plant. So we are producing out of wind gasoline, which we sell to Porsche. And our company is developing projects in many places in the world. Here in the Middle East, Africa, we are focused on Morocco and Oman and Saudi, as you were mentioning that. Whilst we are developing in Chile, very, very much in Uruguay and Brazil. They are the big upcomers now, what we see, and also in Australia. And my main message is, or two main messages, which we can deliberate a little bit more later. First, we have to clearly differentiate between hydrogen as an end product and a hydrogen derivative as an end product. because the market is different, the customers are different, the pricing is different, the technology is different. So an airplane cannot do anything with hydrogen, at least not yet. Maybe that will change, but I'm not so sure. And the steelwork doesn't need eSAF. So it has to be very clear. We're always talking on hydrogen economy. This is bad because it puts all in one bucket, but at the end of the day, the off-taker needs to sign the off-take agreement for project finance, and they clearly define what product they want. So that's the first point. And the second point is that the countries are competing against each other. And also the Kingdom of Morocco, and you put on that rightly, Cornelius, has to understand that it's not a competition in the country on the developers. The countries compete against each other. And there are so many countries out developing these renewable hydrocarbons or also ammonia, and then Morocco needs to speed up. And if I may say so, some of the messages I heard today on gas doesn't help to speed up the eFuels business here in Morocco.
Yeah, it's a very good point, Thorsten. For me, seeing Morocco and having been working in the country for 16 years, we saw a great phase of development in the early 2010s, but I think what we really need is picking up the successful trajectory and the speed. And we have Morocco's largest company. Till, welcome, great to have you with us. I think OCP doesn't really need a presentation, but I'd be interested to hear what, I think you have an own renewable program as OCP, and what your stance is on energy transformation and low emission molecules.
Thank you, Cornelius, and thanks for having me on the panel. Yeah, so part of OCP, my focus is on green molecules, so also the topic of today's panel. So you mentioned renewables. I mean, this is one point. I mean, we look into decarbonizing our operations as on the different scopes. So parts of us is turning our electricity consumption to green. This is something that we work on, and we'll actually achieve being on green energy or green electricity only in about a year from now. So this is ongoing. Then comes the question about, and you mentioned it, right? I mean, we're one of the largest importers and consumers of ammonia. Today, it's all fossil, of course. It's about 2 million tons per year. So we have the target to produce green molecules, in this case ammonia, ourselves, right? So we have one large-scale project which is ongoing. And this is at the beginning, right? So we look into ammonia because it's a product that we use and we've been using for many decades now, for ourselves, but also addressing export markets, right? But then also we're open also to looking into other molecules, right? Not in the near future, let's say, but this is something in the longer term. Also looking into other derivatives such as methanol, eSAF, and so on, where we see opportunities, right? Because it's not only one product that meets all the needs, right? I mean, we have one need as fertilizer producer, but there are others, like for the shipping industry. There's a need for at the end of the day for hydrogen transport vector. So this is something that we also have in mind.
Yeah, wonderful, and I assume, well, you are upstream, midstream, downstream, all of your products produced by low emission energy will potentially have, I think, significant premium and CBAM, of course, you export to Europe. So I think these are probably points to consider as well. Gianluca, joining from Switzerland, from Ticino, you also have a bit of background in solar, but you're more on the technology side, right, to produce synthetic low-emission e-fuels.
Yeah, thank you very much, Cornelius. And yeah, at Synelion, we are basically developing, scaling, and commercializing technologies for the production of renewable synthetic liquid fuels, in particular with an eye on jet fuel, which is of course the clearer market, but of course also e-gasoline and e-diesel. We have somehow almost 10 years experience. We come from research, so we are really, let's say, coming from the technology. As we grow and scale the company, we are of course also developing the projects and owning and operating part of the assets. What defines us in a nutshell, I go back to the very fundamental of how you basically produce a renewable synthetic liquid fuel. I mean, you will need to have a feedstock of a sort, like a carbon source, a hydrogen source, and you will want to go through a process where you inject substantial energy to energize these to the fuel that has, of course, this incredible high energy density that makes liquid fuel unsubstitutable. There are several pathways to do this, all very interesting, all very important. Purely biological pathways, pathways based, and here we're talking, of course, a lot about those based on electrolytic hydrogen. We have a third approach where we go through renewable heat. We produce high temperature renewable heat and use these to energize the steps that brings us to the fuel. The beauty of renewable heat is that it is, at scale, the cheapest and continuous energy source for a process. This continuous is very important, and it comes because you can easily store heat. With this, we allow to basically, it is possible to come down with the production costs of fuel substantially, and is, of course, the fundamental, let's say, KPI of the technology, able to produce at scale at very low costs of fuel. You still need the renewable energy, so you will want to go in an ideal location, and for sure Morocco is one of the best locations in the planet, and we are looking actively at developing a project here for one of the first big commercial scale plants with our technology.
Very good. Thank you, Gianluca. So, not strangely, a lot of interest in Morocco. And Sasha, you have developed projects. You've done a lot of solar, wind, primarily in Europe, as I understand. If you could kindly introduce a little bit your organization, why you are looking at Morocco now, and maybe I think you're quite close to the off-takers. You have very good relations. Maybe you want to start as well with a first question on who you see as the early adopters, which sort of sectors and which sort of molecules.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my name is Sascha Möhring. I'm General Manager or President of Möhring Energy Group. I'm also a shareholder. My career started 25 years ago in German wind industry, so I grew up with this topic from the very first beginning. And since 20 years, I was in touch with German biofuels, like the first round of biodiesel and biogas plants. So we have been very close in all renewable energy technologies of the German sector with other medium-sized companies. Since 15 years, I run a Möhring Energy Group as it is now, and our main topic has been the development of large-scale photovoltaic and wind farms across Europe. And in our DNA, we cut down the levelized cost of electricity. Maybe if somebody remembers the first hours of photovoltaic, we talked about prices of 30, 40 euro cents or even 50 euro cents for 1 kilowatt hour. Incredible amounts. If you look, it's just 20 years away, and we cut down the cost to maybe 2 or 3 cents. So this is significant development of the industry in just 20 years, and from my perspective, hydrogen is at the same stage now. Now the first round will be more costly, and we need to cut down the cost significantly, so that's what's on our roadmap. Cut down the cost of electricity. We did this already, job's done, and still going on. And second, cut down the cost of hydrogen and its derivatives. Yeah, following your question, we developed a project in Morocco in the region of Tafaya and south of Tafaya. We think that this is a very good region because we have strong wind and also a good solar irradiation. We made studies on the temporary deviation and spread of wind and solar, combined this in a model with 10 minutes shapes, or 10 minutes time slides, and figured out that we can handle this installation quite good. So we made deep dive engineering on that. And you find not so much places. There are some places in the world, like Chile, your project over there, but it's not too much places on the world where you find such a combination of wind and solar and can realize such projects. So Morocco can be proud of this region and these opportunities. And we are very happy to be here and suggest our project idea. And to come to the offtake, as a medium-sized company in Germany, we are very well related with all our partners in energy business, like medium-sized energy distributors, chemical consumers. And we see a huge demand for ammonia, first as a chemical, as a direct use, because a lot of chemical products in the German industry are still produced with fossil ammonia for sure. So this is the first round, just make the direct use. Second, we can use ammonia also as a fuel in combined heat and power plants. So a lot of cities use small and medium-sized combined heat and power plants. And for our side, also ammonia is a good fuel for this decentral operation of these kind of plants. But also the large off-takers will come up. So everybody's looking at something like steel industry and cement industry, so the big players. They will come up a little later, but they stand for high volumes.
Yeah, thank you very much, Sascha. It's very interesting to hear. So even CHP burning ammonia. So that's, well, chemicals, of course, is the largest use case globally. I think more than 50% of even global hydrogen is used for ammonia, and ammonia consequently for fertilizer mainly, but and for the chemicals-based product industry. But yeah, that's very interesting. Thorsten, you have delivered to clients. Your project in Chile is famous. You've delivered synthetic petrol to Porsche, for example. Where do you see the main markets as of now?
So for us, as I said, we are doing the renewable hydrocarbons, and the biggest markets are right now for us aviation sector in Europe, because if you look, we have quotas in place which will pump up in 2030. That means you have then a quota to fulfill, which is low at the beginning, 1.2% only, but it will then increase rapidly. But even the 1.2% even needs an amount of e-methanol at about 2 million tons. So it's not nothing, it's really big. So that is one big market we see. And the other one, of course, is the maritime market. Maritime market very much depends on what the IMO, the International Maritime Organization, will decide in October this year. And we all hope that countries are not following Trump's suggestion to say that here very clearly, because he called for not voting in favor of getting tighter CO2 emission strategies in the International Maritime Organization. But what we see is that this will come true. We have on our hands signed 3 big head of agreements on methanol. So the market is slowly pumping up. And now comes the question, at what price? And the price, and now I'm coming back to Morocco, is at most determined by the renewable fuel, meaning renewable electricity you put in. So levelized cost of electricity from renewables is key. And here, I say that again, as you also mentioned that, and Sascha mentioned that, Morocco is absolutely on the forefront of potential worldwide. We can combine that because we do our developments in Chile, and Chile is a little bit better in wind, but it doesn't has the sun. But the combination as hybrid wind and sun, specific if you go in the southern parts of Morocco, is just amazing. It's just amazing. And now it's really time to harvest that. And this is also my message here to our friends in Morocco. We have been here 3 years ago, we have been here last year, we are here this year, and we need to see more movement in Morocco. I say that very clear. It needs to get quicker on the ground. And we see a discussion taking up saying, okay, if you deliver us the offtake, then we get you the land. This is sort of critical, because if you don't have land, you don't have a project, and you cannot do firm offtake commitments. What you can do is a lot of HOAs, head of agreements, term sheets, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, we need to go into the working mode. And this is something where Morocco, I think, needs to really see itself in this super great position worldwide with this big potential of renewables, and we will continue to work here, and I'm pretty sure that we will get from Moroccan wind and sun airplanes and also ships driven all around the world.
Yeah, let's maybe also mention the fact that Morocco today, that's the biggest burden why the country is kind of suffering. Imports more than 90% still today. When we started working was 95% of primary energy. And this is really, unfortunately, a big burden for the country, but at the same time, the big opportunity. So this needs to fast come down. Similar to the GCC economies, they need to diversify away from oil, and this needs to fast come down, and you can even attract new industries. Maybe till OCP, how do you see that? Are you all focused on ammonia, or how do you see the Morocco opportunity? How can Morocco fast reduce this massive dependency of importing more than 90% of primary energy?
Yeah, happy to take this question. I mean, can only speak on behalf of OCP, of course, like, and how we see things evolving in the country and also in the energy sector, right? And I think there's an overall plan, of course, in Morocco to decarbonize electricity in the first step, and this is, I think, very much on track in building up a massive renewable capacity in the country, either wind power and solar power. And as has been said several times, I mean, the renewable resources are of very high quality, especially in the southern parts of the country, and there's also a large availability of land reserves that can be used, which are in limited competition, let's say, with other, let's say, usages. So the opportunity is huge, and I agree with you. I mean, there's an opportunity that should be captured, right? I mean, there's a great way to go. At the same time, decarbonizing other fuels, right? I mean, also then mobility and industry, this is other challenges which basically all countries face in the world. I mean, there's the initiative or the will to also decarbonize other sectors using hydrogen and derivatives, right? I mean, this is something that is also, I think, done by the Ministry of Energy Transition to look into this beyond electricity, also looking into how to decarbonize other sectors and other industries, right? And I think this is where hydrogen and its derivatives can play a huge role. I mean, as OCP, we focus on ammonia as a first product, as we are a consumer of it, and where we see also offtake opportunities in other markets, especially in Europe, but also elsewhere, right? Then for developing, let's say, other fuels also for the local economy, I think this is also in the making, right? But my feeling is it comes in the next step, which makes the link also to the use of carbon in derivatives, right? Because once you produce methanol or other eFuels, you often need carbon, in this case, biogenic CO2. And this is, let's say, challenge which is out there because, I mean, you need carbon sources which are biogenic, but also competitive, right? And in this case, there are opportunities in producing biomass locally. This is something that we look at. You can also look into direct air capture, which is also an opportunity where cost might still be a challenge out there. And then last option, I don't know if that's the preferred one, also importing CO2, biogenic CO2 to the country. That's an option, it's possible, right? And you have to see at cost points. And then having a, let's say, regulation that allows for the use of it to have then also, if it's for local use, it's maybe less of a question. But if it's also for export markets, that you have RFNBO compliant products that can also be then exported to other markets.
Yeah, thank you for that, and let's maybe move to Europe a little bit. Elodie, Europe is 80% molecules, only 20% is electrons. Majority of the 80% molecules is imported, dirty, and the challenge for Europe is Europe has taken a clear direction, a clear decision to go towards the Green Deal. I think there's no way back. That's the only opportunity and imperative for Europe. But how do you see Europe? Europe has regulations, has things, but also complicated. So on the one hand, maybe a good thing. On the other hand, a bit of a headache for all of us always, no?
Yes, I think the market is ready. We are spoken about IMO concerning maritime. We will see what's happened this month. But for the moment, there is already 450 vessels ordered and they will be operated with methanol. Among these 450, almost, there is almost 250 huge container vessels, more than 10,000 20 feet equivalent unit. So the market is ready. So now they need competitive molecules. We'll see if the IMO can help and give some incentive, because we know that for decarbonizing maritime, we need to have we need to have a low carbon intensity, and methanol is a Z and Z fuel, near zero fuel. So they could already grab some rewards from this emission. So maritime market is ready. Concerning aviation, we have a huge market close to Morocco, and the regulation, it has already been said, but the regulation is ready. We have mandates, we have strong penalties. This penalty, we have to pay them, otherwise the year after you have to pay for year 1 plus year 2, and all the time like this. So it's cheaper to buy a molecule, even if it's more expensive than a fossil molecule. The regulation should help this, and that's why in Morocco we are developing this project, Janassim, in south of Morocco, because it's where we will have the cheapest molecule of the world. And at MGH Energy we think that CO2 will tomorrow be a commodity like water, and CO2 can be transported. CO2 can already be captured, or already be stored. We know the project Northern Light in north of Europe, so everything is ready to make Morocco at the refueling station of the world for maritime world and aviation world tomorrow.
Yeah, hopefully, and there's, I think, quite a few ammonia, or let's call it ships with, first of all, methanol or dual fuels engine out there already. I know there is the first ammonia ship engine is more or less ready to soon enter commercial production. I think there's 2 companies working on that. So the race is on. We're waiting for regulation. I think we need the regulation to create the demand, to create the uptake. Gianluca, maybe you're also based in Europe, you're based in Switzerland, so what is your view, maybe very briefly, on regulation? Where does European regulation need to move, or are we okay with European regulation?
This is an interesting question that, of course, can be answered in many ways, in the sense that, you know, a lot can be improved always, but I think also that, especially from aviation, which is perhaps let's say the market that we are closest now with our projects and our technology, you know, the blending mandates, the sub-quotas for RFNBOs, things like this are now kicking in. RFNBO not yet, but I mean the other one, the 2%, is real, and this is creating an impact. This is showing that this regulation is coming, is here, and will eventually increase. And this is having, from what we perceive, really generating really positive momentum. I mean, last year or 2 years ago, we had much less interest. There was really somehow a dip in interest. And now the fact that people are realizing that this regulation is kicking in, that, you know, this is changing substantially things. So I think, you know, that there are many things that can be improved, and, you know, it could be a long discussion, but what we have is an important start, is an important sign, and it is generating impact. So I would say that, you know, all in all, I see that, you know, now these are really coming online, these blending mandates, especially for aviation. They're really, I mean, it's really, really interesting to see how they work.
Yeah, thank you for that. Unfortunately, our time was relatively short for the panel, but let's give everybody 30 seconds. I'd love to hear from you. Where do you see Morocco globally in terms of producing low emission molecules in 2030, Sasha?
I think Morocco needs to unleash the private sector in hydrogen and hydrogen derivatives, and it will have a prosper growth on this topic.
Gianluca.
Well, I see it as well. I see the boundary conditions that are unique, closeness to the ocean where you can import CO2 or feedstock. You have local possibility of sourcing feedstock, biogenic feedstock. You can grow it. You have the best wind and solar conditions combined, as many have seen. It's a unique place. It can be a global player in the renewable fuel space.
Till.
Yes, thank you. So, first of all, yeah, I think there's a large opportunity for Morocco, and I believe like by 2030 and beyond, I think Morocco can be one of the leading players worldwide to produce green molecules of different forms. But beyond this, I think, and this is at least as important, is to also create ecosystems around this molecule production, having local manufacturing of equipment, having technology development, but having also like industrial platforms that can actually offtake these molecules, right? The question that you had in the beginning. So there's an opportunity also to decarbonize the industry and the economy and produce and actually attract new industries to Morocco.
Yeah. Elodie.
I think that 2030 is quite soon. If we want to have factory, we need to see FID by the beginning of next year. Otherwise, we won't be ready to have a factory in 2030. That's a reality. But I think Morocco has all the key, clever engineers, wind, sun, land, everything to be the best place of the world to project projects.
Yeah, Thorsten, you have the last word.
Well, I see Morocco, be it 2030 or 35 or whatever it is, but somewhere in the future as at least threefold. First of all is a powerhouse for Europe and other countries around the world, clearly the powerhouse. Secondly, having built up its own ecosystem, exactly what just was said, in the land, in the country, with workplaces, with value chain, with everything around. And thirdly, a very big bunkering hub, be it on e-methanol or on ammonia. I think this is also super important. We all see the bunkering hubs for the fossil fuels, they are elsewhere. And I think Morocco can be a big bunkering hub for the renewable fuels, and that's what I see the future of Morocco, if they speed up now.
No, it's perfect. I think it's all positive messages, but let me maybe conclude in stating again that every low-emission electron, every solar and wind electron is extremely precious, and for whatever use it will be extremely valuable for the country, and there's so many different use cases, and I would be happy, and I hope, looking back, that we saw quite a revolution in the early 2010s, a similar kind of revolution. I think that could potentially really transform the country. And let me maybe conclude as well in congratulating Samir, Ayub, and the entire Arizen team for bringing together such an amazing conference. I think this is really amazing. I've been joining every single time, and I love the group of people you bring together. So big congratulations, and let's get together. Let's make it happen. There's just a huge opportunity here. Thank you so much.